streaming in 5, 4, 3, 2. I barely see my breath surrounded by jealousy and death. I can't be reached, only have a call dragged underneath, separate from you all.
It's another live from the Cheeseburger Nebula, which is this month marking its 6-year anniversary. It has been a wild ride. I want to shout out to so many people who've been involved, but I have no lists in front of me. But today, as we do, because we don't talk about anything that's like necessarily, normal in any stretch of the imagination, we just kind of float around and do interviews with artists, interviews with writers, interviews with, whoever the hell wants to interview. Today, Christopher Overton, would you like to say hello?
How's it going, world?
Chris, give us a rundown of what you do. You are I think it's important for people to know, I run Cheeseburger Nebula Galactic Press. We make books and do stuff like that, but you do some really cool stuff for the community.
I'm a work in progress. Let's just go with that.
There we go. And that's what I mean by doing cool stuff in the community, is that we're all works in progress and we all are always putting in the goodness over here. So today we're going to talk about what everybody has probably done a podcast on. If you do any kind of like goofy, whatever, all over the place podcast, we're going to talk comics today, and specifically MCU. Talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because that's been the most fun. We went and saw Captain Marvel a couple weeks ago, which is let's say it's not your mother's prequel, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a very, very strangely done prequel, and Marvel has been really harping on their love for making older people look a lot younger.
Well, they've gotten really good at it.
They have gotten really good at it. Samuel L. Jackson looks actually like I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, he looks like he did 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, you can still tell, like, there are times where he's running or doing something, and he kind of looks maybe a little, maybe like a 60-year-old Samuel L. Jackson running, But other than that, I think he's just doing his thing the entire time, and it was really great to see him, and also Clark Gregg, who plays Phil Coulson, because Phil Coulson hasn't been in the Avengers or any of this MCU movies since his death in the first Avengers movie when Loki stabbed him. So that's always fun, because if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is actually a really good television show, it ties nothing. It sort of ties into the series. It kind of follows the same plot lines, but
it followed a lot closer in the beginning with like the S.H.I.E.L.D. Civil War, the Hydra infiltration, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and also I want to say, out of all of the villains outside of Thanos, since Thanos has been like really the only reoccurring villain throughout the entire MCU, Grant Ward is maybe my favorite villain in any live action Marvel series. I think he is by far the best villain because he is just a bad guy. There's no redeeming qualities about him. There's nothing that I want to. There's never a point where I'm like, oh, you know what? I want Grant Ward on my side. Unless I'm in Hydra, I guess. Then I'd like him on my side.
Not to mention you've got Powers Booth. I can't even remember his character name, but he played Jim Jones in a TV movie, and now he's just, the Marvel Jim Jones. And it's...
Yeah, no, Powers Booth does kill it. And Clark Gregg kills it. And also it gets into a lot of the Kree backstory and a lot of really cool little side bits. Really, what it seems like is Joss and Jed Whedon, the creative forces, and of course Joss Whedon is the mastermind behind Firefly, Buffy. Actually wrote the first screenplay for Toy Story. Did you know that?
I think I had heard something like that. He also did a pass on Alien Resurrection.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
which is why it's basically the Serenity crew.
Yeah. And Serenity is Firefly basically too. Yeah. Also he did Dollhouse with Eliza Dushku. Actually, a very underrated television show. But there really seems like Joss and Jed Whedon were Marvel fanboys in the early 80s to the extreme, with the Hydra, coming in, and all of that. Like, but so if you're geeky and you're actually into comics, which I think is something that we're gonna kind of like get into as we go along, talking about what we think is gonna happen in endgame and all of this, is that basically we've gone so far off the reservation with what the comics are, as to opposed to what the movies have become. Like, it's not comic book world anymore.
Now that you mention it, it seems like a lot of our pop cultural properties are straying far from the material source, whether it's stuff like Game of Thrones, where the material that hasn't been or is in the process of being written, or things like Star Trek, where people are complaining about too much derivation from established norms of storytelling, I guess you could say.
Well, and I understand that to a certain degree. I think, as a fan of anything, you like to watch, the stuff that you grew up on, the stuff that you are familiar with, the things that you really loved. And there are certain parts of the MCU as a huge comic fan that have been really hard for me to accept. But then I got over it and enjoyed my life, and enjoyed that these products were actually coming out, like that. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing, is that, like, let's be real for a second. I've got a list right here of the movies. Hold on. I'm going to move this. Sorry for the microphone sounds. This is the random spaghetti order of how the Marvel Universe in the movies lays out. And it's not how the movies come out, which is kind of, the norm and standard. So how it starts is Captain Marvel is Captain America is the first movie, the first Avenger. Captain Marvel, number 2.
Is this a chronological list?
This is the chronological list.
Okay.
After that, it's Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, and then the Avengers. Switch that. Thor, then the Incredible Hulk, then the Avengers, which is really, really convoluted because
the Incredible Hulk was the first one.
Yeah, it came out before all of the other ones. And then after that, after the Avengers, you've got Iron Man 3, because that's when he starts to have his mental breakdowns. Interesting enough, Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 sandwiched in right after that. And then it goes to Captain America, Winter Soldier, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Captain America: Civil War, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp, then Spider-Man: Homecoming, Doctor Strange. There's a lot of takes on where that should be.
A large part of it takes place outside of time itself.
Exactly. So it can kind of be like, you can say that it takes place honestly right after the Winter Soldier, because that's the first mention of Stephen Strange before Jasper Sitwell gets thrown off of the building. He brings up who Hydra is targeting, and it's like some kid in Iowa City, Stephen Strange, yada yada yada. After that, you have Thor Ragnarok, which leads into Infinity War.
Pretty much directly
into the Infinity War. And then what's really interesting is how those last 4 movies are actually a part of the exact same time period. The Ant-Man and the Wasp, the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, the end of Infinity War. and how it kind of like floats across the entirety of the world through time zones. And it's actually been mapped out by a bunch of nerds on the internet, which is cool because I love nerds on the internet who are doing these things, so I don't have to do this type of research because that seems like a lot of research to do.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with the timeline here, and not just because of magic intervention. It's just
And I think that's the only thing that makes it really hard for people to get into these movies is if you miss one movie, then all of a sudden you're missing you're missing so much. You know, if I were to have missed Civil War, I have absolutely no idea what's going on. You know, like why is Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans so mad at each other? Like, you know, like did they break up? Like what happened? You know, like Bucky came into the picture and he just dropped them and he was like, you know, Bucky was my boy before this, bro. I got to go with you. But, you know, it's interesting too because like there's so many self-contained stories within being that larger universe that it makes it kind of like, okay, like, well, what are the parts of these self-contained stories that actually matter that I need to pay attention to and focus to?
right. A friend of mine had actually asked like what they needed to see going into Infinity War, and I kind of had to stop and think about like the best three or four Marvel movies just to figure out like what's really important to see there, and it ended up being more or less the past 3 Marvel movies.
Well, and here's something that I thought was really interesting is people bring up, you know, before James Gunn got rehired, I thought James Gunn had pretty much told the story of Guardians of the Galaxy how he needed to, besides introducing Adam Warlock, which is how I assume and how Infinity War still might end. But I mean, like, that gets back to my old comic book. Like, if we're telling the story of Infinity War, you know, then, you know, that's the one thing that I was happy about with Civil War was I said, you know, Spider-Man has to be a part of Civil War or you cannot tell that story. Now, they didn't do it in the same way that they did it in the comic books, which I'm fine with because it was a lot darker. But that at that same tip, there has to be context for certain amounts of these stories because, like, just without them, it really makes no sense, you know?
Right. It's just unfortunate that there's 21 movies worth of context.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Well, and the 21 movies that's rough enough. You start to get to, you know, like all of the there are shorts, you know, throughout the entirety of the series. There are certain things that you know, not just the shorts after the movies, but shorts that were filmed on set. So there's like this really one famous one that's right before Civil War. That's Jasper Sitwell and Agent Coulson, or it's before the first Avengers movies, where they're sitting down and they're having a conversation about stuff, and it's from a Hydra perspective and from a Shield perspective. Before you know that that's going to be what the whole main collapse of everything is.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so like there's not only just, hey, guess what, you can watch 22 movies. Hey, guess what, you can watch 22 movies plus a bunch of shorts plus Agent Carter if you want, which helps actually give some backstories to things like the Winter Soldier and Civil War, you know. But it gets to that point where you need people who, you know, luckily I've been a comic book fan since I was a wee baby. You know, I learned how to actually draw from Stan Lee, how to draw VHS tape. That was one of my claims to fame. But it's
most people just, you know, draw the turtle or the pirate.
Yeah, no, and you know what I wanted to draw? I wanted to draw Cable. I thought Cable was the coolest looking dude ever. So I was like, and, you know, now as an adult, I'm like, why does Cable need so many pouches? Like, you know, like him and Deadpool. Like, I don't understand Rob Liefeld and why every character Rob Liefeld ever has drawn needs, like, literally 35 pouches on their body.
Well, it's easy to forget that, you know, cargo pants were the height of pants technology when they came out.
Well, I guess, I mean, for a lot of white men in the South, they still are. But, so I guess, you know, if you haven't seen Captain Marvel, or you haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, or really like any Marvel movie that has been released since 2016, you can like turn off whatever, that you can turn this off right now. This is going to be spoiler city. And I think the best place to start is with Rumorville. Obviously Scott Lang is this is the biggest thing about Endgame is how the hell did Ant-Man, because at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, the post-credit scene, there's a whole big family reunion. Janet Van Dyne's back. Hank Pym's over the moon, which is the first time we've ever seen him over the moon ever, maybe even in his 40, 70 years of comic ideations as well, you know. You've got Hope Van Dyne, who's, you know, it's a happy small little family, you know. And they're like, all right, Scott, we're just going to send you to the back of this van to this weird-ass little microverse, and you're going to just pick up some random molecules, come back. Cool, yeah, no biggie, no biggie. Nothing bad has ever happened in the quantum universe, might as well. So Scott jumps into the quantum universe. He's there for, what, 7 seconds? It's not even a full 10 seconds or something, because they do a countdown during it.
I think that was just, like, the timing to get back.
Yeah, it was like basically he was supposed to be down there for less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, he's not there long.
And of course, Thanos snaps whenever he does
the snapping.
Yeah, the snapping. The snaps happens. You know, everybody turns into dust, and Scott Lang is trapped in the quantum universe now. From what we can gather from what Feige and the Russo brothers have said is that every Infinity War thing that we've seen thus far, like all of the trailers and everything, all of that has been within the first 15 minutes of the movie. So somehow in the first 15 minutes of the movie, it explains Scott Lang getting out of the quantum universe. It explains why Captain Marvel's there, which is more than likely because, this is another spoil. At the end of Captain Marvel in the post-credit scene, at the alarm that Nick Fury sets off finally stops beeping. So all the Avengers are like, well, what the hell? You know, what the fuck, Nick? We've been waiting forever for this. What the hell is going on? Maybe we can restart it. Boom. Carol Danvers shows up. She's like, what up? Like, here to save the world. And that... It's just like the amount of those little things that are all coming together. So, okay. So we know that Carol Danvers has shown up. Scott Lang has gotten out of the microverse somehow.
Yeah, we see him walking around like a residential neighborhood full of missing posters.
Yeah, and that residential neighborhood is actually Cassie and his ex-wife. And
yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, so he's learned that his kids are gone. We've seen Hawkeye dressed as Ronan. Ronan's one of my favorite characters. He's actually had 5 or 6 different ideations as different characters in the Marvel Universe through the comics. But in this one, it was for a long time Hawkeye during the 2010s run. So it makes sense that it's going to be Hawkeye, which kind of leads to us thinking, okay, well, more than likely that beautiful little family that we met in Avengers 2, all dead, you know, or all dust, whatever the hell is going on with all that. So... all of a sudden, he's got a really bad faux hawk. He looks like some kind of Christian youth minister who's just on a fucking killing rampage with a samurai sword. So that's interesting. I'm kind of excited to see what's going on there. But it seems like it's going to be the first 10 minutes is going to be a real big, like, everybody's sad and we're pulling everybody together and we're going to figure out what's going on. And then the next 2 hours and 50 fucking minutes are going to be just fucking... who knows what happens. And to get into some more of the some of the rumors that we've heard about is also in Ant-Man and the Wasp whenever Hank Pym saves Janet from the quantum realm. There is a split-second scene where his little quantum thing is flying by and there's this little profile of a city behind there.
Yeah, it's a geometric shape, so it doesn't fit in with the rest of the microverse stuff of, I don't know, are they bouncing around quarks?
See, and that's the hard thing they haven't really explained that. So I think, I really feel like in the way that they try to explain time and relativity through the Doctor Strange movies, again, if you haven't seen this, basically the Ancient One sends Stephen Strange through a basically ayahuasca trip in about 30 seconds. And at certain points, it really seems as though not only is he traveling interdimensionally, which is what the glass is and why he can create the mirror universe and what all that stuff that they fight in Doctor Strange, but that he also enters into the quantum mechanics and the quantum realms of the universe. And the thing that I think is most interesting about that little city is so I hate this. Disney acquired Fox. That's been coming for a long time. We've all known that was going to happen. That's awful. Monopolies are just, we can get it. This isn't a politics show, but fuck monopolies. The nerd side of me, very, very excited, because that means that all of a sudden Fantastic Four, which includes Namor, Silver Surfer, Kane the Conqueror, Doctor Doom, some of the best characters in the Marvel Universe, including the X-Men, are all coming to the MCU.
Yeah, the more I learn about this, the more impressive it is that they were able to create the movies that they did with the materials they had on hand, because it seems like they're missing half the characters, including protagonists and antagonists, and now they're finally getting them back. So,
well, and Doctor Doom is by far. I mean, Okay, you talk about when we talk about DC, for instance, who automatically comes to mind as the best villain in DC?
The Joker.
Yeah. And I would say Doctor Doom is right up there. Doctor Doom is the Joker of the universe. Now, is he the same? No, he's more like Lex Luthor. But I would say that he's culturally impactful on the entire spectrum of not just what he does with the Fantastic Four, but the entire Marvel universe and multiverse. Because the Marvel universe that we read through our comics is Marvel 616. That's a universe that we're accustomed to.
Right, and the movie universe is 199999.
Something like that, yeah, somewhere around there. Which also kind of explains is because Frank Grillo, who plays Crossbones, Hela, I'm not 100%, but I want to say that kid who played Quicksilver, or I've all kind of been more than likely are coming back to Endgame. So there's going to be a large group of people who have already died through the movies coming back, which would kind of be the easiest way to do it, is just reset the entire comic universe, the entire MCU universe, and kind of give it brand new life. But that's again, this is speculation, rumors. You really don't know what's going to happen. But I do find that interesting, because I think that would be probably the most fun way to do it. But back kind of to Endgame and what we think is going to happen. So the best way for any nerd to figure out what's probably going to happen in your nerd movie that's coming out is to look at the toys.
Look at the toys.
Look at the toys. Every time that you want to know what's going to happen, these 7-year-olds, these 8-year-olds out here, they want the action figure. They don't need the information that's on the box. And guess what? I want that information on the box. So I know that all those white and red suits that you see in all the promos, quantum suits. So right off the bat, we know that all of our heroes are going to the quantum realm. Now, to kind of tie in what we were just talking about with Fox reacquiring that property, there is a character named Kane the Conqueror, a.k.a. Nathaniel Richards, who is a far, far, far descendant of Reed Richards. For those who don't know, Reed Richards is 1/4 of the Fantastic Four. He is Sue Storm's beau, sort of. I mean, Sue Storm has Sue Storm's a player. But basically, if the Avengers are messing with the timeline, which is exactly what it seems like they're doing. If you're messing with the quantum realm, then you're definitely messing with the relativity of time and, all of that stuff. Kane the Conqueror gets real angry about this stuff. Him and Doctor Doom actually go at it. And in the original Infinity Wars comic, the Infinity Gauntlet, I guess, actually, technically, Doctor Doom and Kane the Conqueror have some kind of weird pseudo...
They're bros, right?
No, they hate each other, but they have a weird alliance for ends to their own means. You know what I mean? So they join up. They somehow hitch a ride. They hitch a ride with Reed Richards and Norrin Rad, aka the Silver Surfer, and a couple other people, and basically somehow get inside of Galactus, and that has something to do with something. I haven't refreshed my memory on this, and those are such long, because that's right around the Watchmen time, so everybody's going really Alan Moore with everything, so it's all just densely written graphic novels, which if you're making graphic novels out here, you don't need to be that dense with it, just PSA. But it would make sense if you're playing with that timeline, because Thanos has been the bad guy since Avengers 1. He's the reason Loki did it. He's at the end end scene of that, he's at the beginning. He's in the movie of the
Right.
Avengers, and at the end scene of the second one is, I guess I'll go do this myself. You know,
Just a brighter shade of purple.
Yeah, brighter shade. I liked how he looked originally. I think he looked really comic-y and very much more like frightening. Josh Brolin, he kind of looks like Brock Lesnar shaved his head and got, like kind of turned purple.
I don't know. I think Brolin humanizes him to an insane degree.
I think Brolin does an incredible job with him. I think Josh Brolin honestly saved that movie. I think that movie would have been a mess if it wasn't for how good of a character Thanos was.
Yeah, I rewatched it last night, and I kept trying to think, like, if I didn't have 21 movies worth of context, how would I be able to follow any of this? And I mean, Brolin is the glue that holds it all together.
Well, and yeah,
and he's definitely the animating, like, lightning bolt in the beginning, where he just kind of shows up. It's a very subdued entrance considering all the carnage, but it's just a magnetic personality.
Yeah, when you talk about, outside of the Doctor Dooms and outside the Magnetos, which were some, and Namor even, people that you can't, because those are all Fantastic Four properties or X-Men properties. Those are by far the best when it comes to talking about villains in the Marvel Universe. Thanos has always been the most complex villain, him and Ronan the Accuser, in my opinion. Because Ronan falls in love with Shi'ar, and like his whole Kree mission becomes this whole different thing. But anyway, that's something that probably will never come up in the movies, even though he was brought back for Captain Marvel, which I thought was a very interesting take. So it kind of might get to see the progression of Ronan and how he goes from being an accuser to being a zealot accuser, crazy man.
Yeah, the Kree legal system seems pretty complicated.
Which, I imagine that Fox somehow owns the rights to the Shi'ar because they're part of the X-Men universe hugely. So, that would make sense for all that to happen, and then kind of give Ronan a reason to go absolutely insane. But Thanos was one of those characters that you actually have a tragic story. Because people on Titan aren't purple. People on Titan, he was a very disformed, a very ugly child, constantly ridiculed, made fun of as a child, weak, frail. He was, just not treated with respect. And through that is how he develops this kind of like Titan nationalism, I think is the best way to put it, is that like, it's not necessarily... Which is, I think, the most dangerous part about his whole ethos, is it's not necessarily about the keeping of purity as much as it's just like, hey, let's just destroy half of everything and just see, like that's going to help, know. So, and that's chaos. That's just pure, evil chaos. That's not like, in his mind, it's neutral chaos. You know what I mean? So his ethos is so tied into a neutral chaos setting that, oh my God, that all of a sudden, like, how do you reason with someone like that? And that's why I thought Thanos was such a great character to have be that first story arc over the Avengers and be the puppet master, because he's a puppet master for each of those. Besides Hela and Thor Ragnarok, and besides the Hydra stuff that happens on during the Civil War and all that stuff. But you look at the Ether and what happened in Thor: The Dark World. You look at all of Guardians of the Galaxy. That's all about Thanos. I mean, that's basically either we're running from Thanos, or we're trying to keep something from Thanos, or we're trying to
Yeah, he's all over, just nowhere to be found.
Exactly. Yeah. When you're constantly mentioned too, I think that's one of the better ways to kind of like really keep up the legend of a bad guy, quote unquote. And again, that's what makes me so excited, is that like, that we're talking about I guess kind of bringing back a Lex Luthor character to adequate it to DC. And then now you can bring in someone like Doctor Doom, someone like Magneto, and all of a sudden that changes everything. Because, all right, let's get to Endgame. So for Endgame, it's a little, I loved how Infinity War's in it. It didn't have any, post-credit scene, didn't have anything like that. It was just like, hey, we're done, like this, here's, everybody's dead except for, the original characters that and love, and like, that's how it is. The thing that bums me out about this next movie coming out is, well, I know in July that Spider-Man's coming out, and then I know that Doctor Strange 2 is coming out, and I know Black Panther 2 is coming out, and there's rumors that Scarlet Witch is going to have her own television show, and rumor, like, That's,
Yeah, it'd be hard to do this if they remained red dust.
Yeah, exactly. So we know that they're coming back. How they come back, it was obviously that's the big question, and that's the most fun question of it all. And like, you know, who we lose, which it's pretty evident that Captain America is probably going to be lost, you know. But if it is a time stream thing, does he just go back to the 40s? Does the Avengers set up like S.H.I.E.L.D.? Does he take care of Hydra through there? And then all of a sudden, you got a complete time reset, you know. That's, I think, the most exciting thing that the Russo brothers and Feige can kind of like play with, is that like you can reset everything. I mean, it's a comic book. It's a freaking comic book universe. And you can do whatever you want. And I mean, I think one of the better ways, since you and I are big Star Trek fans, though I'm not the biggest fan of the J.J. Abrams films, they did a really good job of just trying to reset it and just being like, "Oh, this is different," you know, like this isn't your grandmother's Star Trek. This is something else, you know, like, and that's something that, you know, the Avengers obviously kind of have to do. Especially if you're going to have Carol Danvers which is very evident. Carol Danvers is the torchbearer, you know. Robert Downey Jr. might be there for emotional support, or he might die.
He might be in a computer.
He might be in a computer, yeah. Well, and that's actually very interesting, because in 2015 runs of the Avengers...
Isn't he the new Jarvis?
He was a brain, yeah. He was actually just a brain. He thought it would be more efficient if he was a brain instead of a mech suit. Yeah, that's a very interesting run. I really actually do recommend reading that. But, you know, the other things that are really kind of coming into play with the Endgame movie is, all right, so if we are killing off a lot of our favorite characters, are we going to be introduced to any new characters? Because one thing that we know from Infinity War is that Xandar was completely destroyed. And that was where the Power Stone was. That was where the first Guardians of the Galaxy took place for mostly with the Nova Corps. The John C. Reilly character is actually a canon character in the comic books. Now, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but what he is the last surviving member of the Nova Corps. And he had a helmet that had all of the information for the Nova Corps. And what he does in the comics is he makes his way to New York, finds Sam... I don't remember his last name. There's too many characters. And he gives Richard Rider, actually, the original Nova, but I imagine they'll go with Sam, whatever his name is. Richard Rider, the original Nova Corps helmet, which gives him the power to fly at the speed of sound, basically. So he's like a freaking bullet, you know.
So is Earth just very conveniently located between these hostile star empires?
So what's going on, basically, is Earth was just kind of like... In the comics specifically, is that Earth was something that was almost not... The Kree looked at them and they said, okay, you know, we've got the Inhumans. So the Inhumans in the 60s were already living in their moon base. So they're already living above the planet. Yeah. And with Black Bolt, who's probably one of the most powerful characters in the Marvel universe, you know, no one's getting really past the Inhumans. And
seems like everyone likes to rent, but no one wants to buy.
Well, and that's the thing, is that with the Fantastic Four, that's kind of your first adventure into space with a lot of those different characters. That's when the Inhumans are introduced, actually, the canon comic books after that, like I think 2 years later, because Fantastic Four came out in like 64. So then you've got... we still have such a basic understanding of what space is. Even in comics, you know, credit to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, they always try to kind of keep it real like that. So Fantastic Four is exposed to all this different space particle stuff, blah, 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 blah. We get to the fourth issue of Fantastic Four, and that's when the Skrull invasion happens. And once the Skrull invasion happens, then you start to see this kind of like influx of stuff. But then at the same time, you've got the X-Men, which is one of their more positive and like better selling comic books that are going on right there. So they're like, okay, well, we can actually explore alien concepts through genetic evolution, which makes it easier for us to explain. And then once you get into the 70s and Doctor Strange, really... Steve Ditko really early runs, that's when you start to see this kind of like... And that was the one thing that I really love about the MCU is like, yeah, like Guardians of the Galaxy was sort of the introduction, but Doctor Strange was like, here's the introduction to not only is like, yeah, there's space, but there's a multiverse, there's like there's layers to this shit, and you have to fucking figure it out. Like, so I think, it's going to be really interesting. I think what has to happen basically is that S.H.I.E.L.D. has always in the comics had a Space Force, basically.
Right, Sword.
Sword, yeah. And Sword has to happen. And with the introduction of Adam Warlock's Cocoon at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 from the behind the, the post-credit scene, more than likely Moondragon's going to pop up, and then you're going to get the Infinity Watch. That's the only thing that makes sense after the Infinity Stone.
Including that pan-looking dude?
Yeah, and including Snarf of Space. I don't remember what it is, but yeah.
Doesn't he always have a cigar?
Yeah. Yeah, Infinity Watch is super weird. It's very strange. And they're talking about doing the Eternals, so we're already looking at, we're about to get some really deep back, 60s, 70s, weird Marvel time stuff.
Well, I mean, they've already got us to accept a talking raccoon and a tree dude as, part of the team, so the sky's the limit as far as what they can get us to suspend our disbelief for.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's fine. I think that's good.
I'm not saying that in a bad way. I was just thinking it's just kind of crazy. It's great.
It is crazy, and it's something that that was what I was most concerned about with Marvel, because I'm going to be completely honest with you, Chris. When Captain America, the first Avenger, came out, I was not into it. I was just like, I don't give a shit about this. Thor came out. I was like, I don't care. I really don't. Iron Man was fine. The Hulk was boring. Edward Norton really mailed in that role.
Well, he's been mailing stuff in since Fight Club.
Yeah, absolutely. He mailed Fight Club.
Yeah, he kind of did.
Tyler, if it wasn't for Brad Pitt, that movie wouldn't be. And if it wasn't for David Fincher, let's be honest about that. But that's a whole different story.
It also fits the character.
It fits yeah, exactly. David Fincher is just a genius, so we'll give him that. But you start to look at all of these early. The first two phases of Marvel were trash. They were garbage. And unless you really like comic books, then you're not going to be wanting to fight through them, And once you fight through them and you get to the other side and you start to get things like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, you start to get, Captain America Civil War, which in my mind is probably still one of the best things that they've ever done.
So you don't include the first Avengers in that?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. The Avengers, yeah, definitely. Once you get to the Avengers, that's when it's like, okay, game on,
'Cause that was definitely when they figured out they could make something better than the sum of the parts.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually where I was trying to get to. And I didn't mean Civil War. I actually meant to say Winter Soldier, because I think Winter Soldier, because Thor the Dark World, all those kind of middle movies after that, those are not that great, And Ant-Man's fun, and Ant-Man and Wasp are fun too, but those are almost kids' movies, which is fine with. I mean, you got to diversify your bonds when you're getting to this point. When you're making 22, releasing 3 to 4 movies a year, how are you going to... And not only, you've got Sony too, who's going to be just releasing stuff as well. So you've got 7, 8 Marvel movies, 12 shows, everything that's coming out, all the... And then, you got DC too. So, people aren't just going to be like, oh, well, it's DC and Marvel. People are going to be like, it's comics. You got more comic book movies coming out. New Hellboy with David Harbour is coming out.
I can't wait for that.
So that's going to be great. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. But, okay, back to the main topic of this. So, I think, and of course, all of this is speculation. It's got to be that Robert Downey Jr. and Nebula, aka Iron Man and Nebula, somehow get saved by, you would think, Captain Marvel.
There are enough people in spaceships and people who can fly through space. They'll get rescued somehow.
Yeah. Maybe Harry Mudd just comes through and they'll save him for a fee, of course. But no, yeah. So
He's got a time travel device.
He sure does. So I'm not too really concerned about all of these little subplots. I'm really just mainly focused on what the real plot of the movie is, because it's been so under wraps about everything. The only real information that we're getting on the internet is people want Ant-Man up Thanos' ass. That's how secretive this movie is that's pretty much the most known fact about it right now, is that yeah. Which is, that's saying a lot too. Which I hope doesn't happen. I would much rather Ant-Man grow to 80 feet tall and just sit on Thanos. Yeah. That would be really weird.
A quantum colonoscopy would be...
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now I don't know how I feel about it. It'd be interesting to see, but it'd be kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, but who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? And I mean, like the real question too is like, is Shuri gonna be taking over the mantle of Black Panther? You know, like I think that's a really big question. And what is M'Batu gonna be doing? You know, since he didn't die with the rest of it, is he gonna be the king of Wakanda? You know, how is the world governed? What is the Sokovia Accord? Does the Sokovia Accord even exist anymore?
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
not going to be. It's going to be pretty far from people's priorities.
Yeah, that's what it would have to be, right? Yeah.
I mean, the only other movies that I can think of leading into Endgame would be like the Left Behind movies, as far as like what happened. And I'm talking about both. You know, this will be better than both like the Kirk Cameron version and the Nick Cage version.
Oh wow!
But it's going to capture that kind of, you know, so many people have just disappeared just like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and what do you do? And that's something too that like I'm kind of excited that you get this sort of gritty reboot of everything. You don't get to, because that's Marvel has really been able to teeter the line with like what is gritty, what is family friendly, what is something that's gonna kind of scare the kids but keep the adults entertained. And I think that they've done a really phenomenal job about that, and that's something that I'm just totally stoked on, is that they've been able to tell really dark stories like Civil War, which I don't know if you were aware of this. Civil War was actually written in 2002 in response to the Patriot Act.
Right.
Yeah, which, you know, again, and that's something that I think we sort of covered on the last show, even though the last show didn't survive, was that it's always interesting to find like very conservative fans of these franchises when most of the social commentary is very, very, you know, left-leaning, for lack of a better term, basically. And that's basically, you know, you even see that in the Civil War movie, is like, you know, it's a Captain America. He's obviously the protagonist, you know. I mean, it's more so here's Tony Stark dealing with his own surprise ego, trying to get himself over this ego and trying to figure out, like, you know, how he can make himself feel better, and just really just fucking everything up like he constantly does. And that's, you know, that's the thing that I think is going to be the most interesting with this movie, is how who takes the fall, who takes the bullet, you know. Is it going to be Tony Stark? Is it going to be Captain America? Is it going to be Thor? Which I don't think it's going to be Thor. I think Chris Hemsworth loves the character too much to stop, actually. So
Yeah. Ragnarok definitely reinvigorated the character and seeming everyone's appreciation of that character, and let us realize just how far he'd come since the first Thor, where, I mean, it is crazy looking at the his character arc and just seeing how much fun he's having with it.
yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and with the introduction of Captain Marvel too, I mean, you finally bring it into the space stuff, and once we have the Skrulls and Adam Warlock and, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy, obviously. I mean, you've got, I mean, once you introduce Silver Surfer too, you know, you're going to have people like myself just going absolutely over the moon, because that is by far my favorite character in the Marvel Universe. Well, okay. Second favorite character in the Marvel Universe. Let me give I told you I was going to do this before the show, and I knew you knew this was coming. Moon Knight is by far the best damn Marvel character that's ever existed. And I don't even care what anybody says. He's not Batman, for freak's sake. Like, you always hear fucking, oh, he's Marvel's Batman. He's not Marvel's Batman. He's worshiping an ancient Egyptian god named Noshu and fucking running around the streets just beating people up, like, doing the damn thing. Mark Spector is a badass. Yeah, he has split personality disorder. Or multiple personality disorder. I don't know what the proper terminology for that is, but he's a phenomenal superhero. And not only dealing with his mental aspects, but he's also dealing with having an ancient Egyptian god inhabiting his body. And then he also is dealing with, hey, you know what? I've got to pay child support, so I'm going to be a cabbie at night, even though I'm a millionaire, and a trained CIA operative who murders people. I mean, hell, well, this is the coolest character ever. What the hell is going on? Like, dude has no idea. He has no, like, And not only does he have, okay, like, first Moon Knight design, kind of goofy. Homie's running around on a giant, like, crescent moon, fucking, like, cape and shit, flying around the city. Like, all right, guy, that's a little weird. Now he's just in a full white suit with a white fucking balaclava, white gloves, white shoes. Like, bro, like, and you know he's beating people up. He got blood all over him. Like, what are you doing, Moon Knight? Like, why are you looking like that? Why are you just out here, just wilding, he's just not giving a fuck. And that's why Kevin Feige, if you're listening, you should make a Moon Knight movie. That was probably a really bad way to twist the arm of Marvel, but it's the only character that deserves a movie at this point.
Oh, just speaking as a casual fan, I have no idea what to make of all that.
Yeah, well,
but I look forward to seeing it.
Well, yeah, well, you've got it. Okay, New Egypt is one of the best things Marvel has written in years, and you'll hear people all the time be like, Marvel's making good movies, they're not creating any good like writing or anything. And when that comes to like what Bendis has produced over the past few years, I'll give you that. Like Michael Bendis has been kind of on a down slope, especially after that first Alias run that he did is just such a high pinnacle that I don't know if he'd ever match that. But New Egypt and I mean, honestly, I could just go down the list of basically any Moon Knight run that's been released from 2014 to 2018 that wasn't written by Michael Bendis is just cash money. That stuff is all so good, and it's he's such a complex character, and it's one of the few too that you actually get to either read the graphic novel that's not too wordy. You know, like one thing I love about the medium of graphic novels is that like, hey, it's a graphic novel. You don't have to tell the story with words. You don't know. Everybody's not Alan Moore. Everybody's not Frank Miller, you know, like, and thank God, you know, like, like if everybody was Alan Moore, I don't know if I would read comics anymore.
No one would read comics.
No, comics would be a dead medium. And I love Alan Moore. That's no disrespect to the OG at all. Like that guy is, you know, thank you for Watchmen. Please, you know, thank you for everything that you've done. But like, people aren't you, so I hope they don't try to be you. Even Gaiman, I'll throw as much respect to the world of Neil Gaiman because, like, yeah, he's wordy, but he's fine with his words, you know.
Yeah, but sometimes you just got to let the art speak for itself.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of artists really, it's kind of like political cartoons like we were talking about the other day.
Well, that art never speaks for itself. It's always labeled.
It's always labeled, exactly. And I think that there's so many people out there that are labeling graphic novels. They're just, you trust your audience. Like, as an artist, like, just as a pure sidebar rant for a second, believe in your audience. They're smarter than you think. They're always going to be smarter than you think, and they're always going to be able to understand the things that you didn't think that they'd understand, you know? Like,
right.
And I think it's really important for people to also be led to things. If I explain something that maybe needs some historical context for you, maybe you should do a little bit of research and read it, you know? Like maybe if I'm referencing the Library of Alexandria on the most basic level, maybe read a little bit about the Library of Alexandria, learn something, garner something. I'm not going to spoon feed it to you, you know? And that's what I think, like, I think that's what all artists need to do is, like, you don't have to spoon feed it to everybody. Everybody's not a baby out here. You know, like,
yeah.
And that's one thing, too, that I really love about the MCU is that, okay, you might have missed a whole bunch of stuff, but we're not going to spoon feed it to you, you know? Like, and, all right, so in this next movie, it has to be something. We're thinking Captain Marvel uses the Infinity Gauntlet, right? That's kind of, is that where your mind's at?
In the place of Adam Warlock?
Yeah, because that's how it ends in the comics is Adam Warlock. Unless Adam Warlock is somehow introduced during this, which honestly, you know, if the Sovereignty Planet was, you know, wiped out and they've been genetically creating people for however long.
I don't know. That might be too much of a detour for a movie this packed.
Would it, though? Because, I mean, it would be just as much of a detour of Dimitri and going visiting the elf to get to get Stormbreaker made. It would be easy. It'd be compact enough to tell that story. And if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it would be really easy for you to understand, while easy to surmise for people who didn't see it, you know? You know, something, too, that I was also thinking about, you know, at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, you had the original Guardians of the Galaxy get together. Besides Yondu, obviously, because Yondu died. But this is Sylvester Stallone character and all of them.
Stakar,
yeah, exactly. So if you get Stakar and, like, all those, I just, like, from what I can understand, it's going to be, like, basically everybody. You know? Like, which I'm like pretty stoked about. Like, I mean,
It's already clocking in at 3 hours.
yeah. Well, and guess what? That's fine with me. Like, this is if we need the first intermission in movie history since like what, the 30s. Is that when intermission stopped?
No, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last movie that used an intermission.
It had to be like Citizen Kane or something.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail, that has an intermission.
Okay, that's right. That does, yeah. Okay, so it's been 40 years, 50 years almost since we've used an intermission. Oh, a little bit over 50 years. Is that 72?
I couldn't tell you when it came out.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there, 40, 50 years. But that's, I mean, yeah, give me an intermission just because, like, I'm gonna be there for the first. I don't care. Like, I'm gonna be there before they have those stupid like fan films where they're like, you know, me and my boyfriend are going to buy popcorn, and I'm looking at the Coke, the soda machine.
Oh, you mean commercials?
Yeah,
that
they
are
have
cleverly
the
disguised as fan
disguised
films.
commercials that are they're fan films. Like, give me a budget of $200 and I can make a better freaking fan film than all of that Regal Entertainment BS. That's a call out too, Regal.
You mean that Coke commercial didn't speak to your soul?
No, it didn't. That heteronormative BS, like fucking like what is this? Okay, it's a cute guy behind the counter pouring up Coke, and her boyfriend's getting a little timid because he's getting her snacks for her. Like, dude, like you're paying this dude to do a service. The guy's literally probably just thinking about going home and playing video games, maybe taking a shower. Like, he just wants to get out of there. He's just trying to work cash register at the fucking local Cineplex, dude. Like, he's trying to go home. He's not trying to steal your girl right now. Like, you need to get over your own fucking like toxic masculinity bullshit. Like, she's not trying to like cheat on you with the guy that is giving her popcorn when y'all are about to go see a movie together. I don't need all that BS. Like, if he challenged you to a duel, if he pulls a sword out from the popcorn machine and is like, I shall challenge you for this woman's hand, and like, then that's something. But like,
That would be a better film.
that'd be a way better film too. But it would still be on that heteronormative bullshit. But whatever.
Well, I assume the sword would push it into parody.
It would have to. I mean, like, and I think that's a good point. Yeah, more parody. There we go.
Are you listening, Coca-Cola?
Yeah, Coca-Cola, if you're out there. Hey, Regal Entertainment, I've got you wherever the hell you are. But no, so basically for Endgame, what I'm thinking is that we're going to sprinkle in a bunch of Fox references. I don't think that they're going to be full on like, oh, here's Johnny Storm, or here's Norn Rad, or here's, fucking Charles Xavier. Like, I think it's going to be like, oh, well, the Baxter Building got destroyed or something, and everybody's going to be like, oh, the Baxter Building, oh, that's where the Fantastic Four are, oh my God, like, it'll be kind of like the Jasper Sitwell, Stephen Strange drop in Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it looks like the rumor is pointing to the third of the post-credit scenes as the introduction of some of the newly acquired characters. And they're going to do it in the most iconic way they can.
And how iconic are they going to get? I want you to drop this because this is spoiler, but this is a very small spoiler, and it's at the very end of the movie. Post credit.
From what I hear, you don't see a face. You just see an arm, a hand, and then some blades and a snikt.
And here comes one of the most iconic Avengers of all time. Probably the most iconic X-Force, member of all time.
Who people like me don't even know are on the team.
Yep. The most iconic, without question, X-Men of all time.
Cyclops.
Scott Summers, everybody. No. Our good friend Hank Williams III. No. Are
you ready for some
Well, yeah,
football?
are you ready? Yeah, exactly. Woo! Wolverine. For those who couldn't garner through all of that. But yeah, the biggest rumor is that the next Avengers movie, which would be a couple years out, and this makes actually a lot of sense because they just scrapped everybody from the First Class films, that it's going to be X-Men versus Avengers. And with the reset of the timeline, you can do whatever the hell you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the Fox X-Men films, they've already reset the timeline
4 times.
What? Oh,
4 times.
4 times. Okay.
Yeah, because you have Days of Future Past, and then you have
Yeah, don't they do it twice in Days of Future Past, like once before the movie takes place, just to get to that point? And
yeah,
then
they do it
at the
twice
very
in
end?
that, and then Logan resets it 3 times in that movie alone. Like, and then there's another reset that I can't remember. I feel like it takes place in
Well, just from X3 to First Class. there's a
yeah, well,
reset.
yeah, exactly. If you're including the original ones too, like, good God, but
It's a mess.
it's a mess. It's a total mess. But it's it's distinct enough and it goes on a full circle enough that it's fine. Like that those movies are standalone. They set up for what we have today. And if we can sit around and we can talk about Avengers movies all day and comics, like I'm fine with that. Like because as someone who grew up reading Image comics and okay, something that I will sidebar here, I'm very disappointed with Jamie Foxx being a Spawn. I just wanted to say that I love Jamie Foxx. I love the character of Spawn. I do not think that it's a good marriage. I don't understand what the hell Todd McFarlane was thinking.
Wait, was that
That's
the original movie?
Nope, that was Michael Jai White. Michael Jai White was a badass Spawn, but no, their new Spawn coming out and it's gonna have Jamie Foxx as Spawn.
Huh.
If he plays the piano a couple times, I might be into it. But and that's no disrespect to Jamie Foxx. I think he's a great actor. I just think like there's so many other people. The biggest thing though, kind of keeping on with Marvel, who? All right, I'm gonna just destroy his Ali Monticello Ali
Mahershala?
Mar.
Bushmaster, right? No.
No, that wasn't Bushmaster. He was Cottonmouth.
Cottonmouth, thank you.
And he was also in God, this is gonna bother me.
He was in Green Book, which I haven't seen, but he's there.
Yeah. He's gonna be the new Blade. I'm very excited about that. Blade needs a reset. I love Wesley Snipes. Can't have a 6-year-old playing, but But that was a very good little Avengers stroll of trying to figure out what the hell's happening, even though I don't think there's really any way to figure it out. And I think we covered it. Everything.
Yeah, we covered a fair amount.
Yeah. Let me just do a little couple plugs. If you're voting, which I do hope that you do vote in local elections because those are what matter the most. Kaylin Heffernan is the mayoral candidate of the Cheeseburger Nebula Galactic Press. We are putting in our hat for them, and for everything that they do for this community. Also, check out Darko, Rosanna Franchette. We've got a new book from the press coming out in May called Some Things Don't Work Out by Estefania Munoz. We also have shows in May at Book Bar, May 24th, 8 p.m. Got a bunch of people from around the United States. A very burger weekend. Hooked on Colfax the next day, and the third day a surprise location. And then Crew House will be June 21st as Boulder Writers Warehouse, as well as Cleft Jaw Press. So big shout out to Ellie Swinson, Emily Duffy, and Franklin Metropolis. For Chris Overton and Ariel Roberts, I am Dr. William Seward Bonney, the Reverend. All of y'all have a fucking phenomenal day and live long and prosper. I'll see you next time.
Peace and long life.
Yeah, we are Denver.
Good job, guys.
Thank you, my friend.